Hey everybody, this is Bo back in the Sports Lines. Hey, we had a chance to talk to U.S. boxing head coach Ron Sims, and now we're going to go out to Northern Michigan. We're going to talk a little wrestling and the Olympics with our own buddy, Shannyn Gillespie. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Bo?
Hey, we're doing well. Good weekend for sports in general, but even better news for women in the Olympic sports as far as wrestling and boxing. It's got to be a pretty exciting time for you.
Yeah, some of this information you're regarding came out about a month ago. The IOC, or the International Olympic Committee, they from time to time they meet and they have like Olympic summits and whatnot. And one of the things they did was increase the female involvement in the Olympic Games. Boxing, they've actually introduced that as a sport. I think rugby now is an Olympic sport as well, men and women. And they've mentioned that those other three things I mentioned they're going to be absolutes. They're standards now. They've mentioned something along the lines with the women wrestlers too. Right now, the women for the Olympics have 4 Olympic weight classes. We're pushing and hoping that we can increase that to 3. And the wrestling was mentioned in those talks as well. So hopefully, with the addition of boxing and rugby for women, we can also have more weight classes for the women. Currently, right now, just so everyone has an indication of why this is important, the men for Greco-Roman have 7 weight classes, and men's freestyle also has 7 weight classes. And women right now have 4 weight classes, and we like to get that number to 7 so that it can be equal across the board.
Well, the one thing that it's going to help out is on the professional circuits. We know professionally, women boxers and women MMA are some of the best watches on TV. And if we can get that thing boosted up for the Olympics, you talk about some major professionals coming out of the category. I'm excited.
I think it's going to help all of those categories that you mentioned. Of course, anytime that you can give more opportunity to anyone, anywhere, that is always a good thing. But now you're increasing the income stream, perhaps, for some folks that may have not had that same opportunity before. I mean, right now, you have some women professional boxers, and you have a few women in the MMA world doing their thing. But now, if you include boxing as an Olympic sport, now you've got two of the categories that are, primary things that people are doing in the MMA world. So now women will have more opportunity to win medals in the Olympics for boxing and wrestling and judo. Those 3 primary sports make up some of the foundation of MMA.
Absolutely. Now, Coach, we're going to back up just a little bit to yesteryear. Nick Ficchetti was an Olympic, went to the Olympic trials, didn't make it over to Beijing, but he's in the MMA. Big Ben Askren was the Olympics, had some challenges, and now he's, training, coaching, and MMA. I don't think there's been a better time to be part of USA Wrestling than right now.
Certainly, USA Wrestling is on the forefront of trying to help women do their thing in the sporting world at the Olympic Games and Pan American Games and World Championships and most of the events that are internationally known. And there's other sports as well, like grappling is a component of MMA, and USA Wrestling is the national governing body for that sport. Sambo is also, I don't know if many people know about Sambo, but people that are listening to this show probably have an insight to what Sambo is. And USA Wrestling is heavily involved with that too. So what's happening now is a lot of these combative type sports are getting a lot of notoriety because of what MMA was able to do in the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years. And you hear this every now and then. You'll see some articles about it. They're talking about, I don't know how soon or how reliable the sources are, but they're talking about perhaps that MMA or some form of it could be in the Olympic Games. Not in the next 4 to 8 years, but certainly in 8 to 12 or 16 years, and that would be certainly something to talk about.
Yeah, I know Naga and Kip Kohler have actually had one-on-one discussions with some Olympic members about adding his style of MMA because it's a little cleaner and the wrestlers could actually do it in the setup design without having massive injuries in triage from head wounds. And I know that's one of the concerns is that in the Olympics, they don't want massive blood loss because first it doesn't look good on TV unless you're into the sport, but having grappling and other events like that, pretty incredible.
I think it would be, this is of course my opinion, I think it would be easy to introduce with certain parameters, just like boxing at the Olympic level is different than boxing in the professional world. If I'm not mistaken, I think the glove ounce size is a little bit different, so there would be certainly some modifications that you could do to the sport, mixed martial arts, to get it in the Olympic Games. Maybe the glove ounce size is a little bit bigger in certain holds, just like in judo. I mean, judo has a lot of the same choke holds, if you will, or arm bars. They have a lot of the same holds that are used in MMA, but they they don't allow it to get so far where the people are actually getting injured. That's the same thing they do in the MMA world too. Every now and then you'll see someone that something actually gets extended further than it should, but usually the referee is there to safeguard that and prevent a lot of the injuries. So in a nutshell, I think it's a possibility. There would just need to be a little bit rules modification, and then everyone would be able to see that unique sport in its entirety.
Now, we're going to back up a little bit. We know you're probably running short on time. We always try to keep this under 10 minutes, but I've got to ask this question. There's been so much talk on the college levels, and I know you're pretty well into the Olympic level, but you definitely follow college, about moving the season to get away from March Madness in basketball to have only wrestling. I was originally in favor of the move before I realized that they're probably going to stagger the D2 and D3, which I think would be horrible for wrestling. Some of the benefits of watching wrestling is you get a chance to watch the D3 and even the NIA top wrestlers go at it in the big tournament and these opens. And now if they happen to change this, it's going to wreck it. I agree with Flow Wrestling's philosophy is they really need to get more marketing from the NCAA and have them cough up some dough and do a better job of promoting the sport, because I cannot see basketball fans following wrestling. And I do have to agree with that. Basketball is designed for kids, football is designed for boys, and wrestling is for men. And I just can't see those two guys hopping on the bandwagon. What's your thinking on that?
In regard to the time frame which the season would be in, I have mixed feelings. I think that you're going to get your diehard fans in every sport that are going to do whatever it takes to view it, to watch it, to read it online, to get all the information that they can. But if you're talking about your everyday sports fan that likes all sports, and primarily, as an example, maybe football is their favorite sport, but they like to watch wrestling, they like to watch boxing too. But if the Super Bowl is going to be on, all bets are off. They're going to watch the Super Bowl. If we're trying to get that type of casual fan, then I would be in favor of staggering or moving the season to an earlier part of the year. For instance, maybe it could be, and this is something that, of course, the NCAA and all of the organizations that have college programs would have to discuss. If they could move it from, let's say, September through December, now you've moved it to a one-semester sport.
Amen.
You have different eligibility concerns with regard to grades. And now, for what I'm doing and what the Greco-Roman people are doing, of course, I'm a freestyle coach, but, right next door I have a Greco-Roman coach as well. Actually, I don't know if you know this, Dennis Hall is now he's a world champion, Olympic silver medalist. He's now the new Greco-Roman coach at the United States Olympic Education Center. Anyway, backing up to the point, if they move folk-style NCAAs and NAIAs and National Junior College tournaments, national tournaments, before the semester ends, now the national governing body and or USA Wrestling gets a little bit better training in terms of getting people ready for the national tournament, the World Team Trials, and the World Championship. So if I would like to see if it, this would change everything, but if they could, it would be in line with the football season where we have our national tournament sometime maybe in January, probably in December, right before exams. In that way, now you don't have a season that stretches over 2 semesters, and now you're not necessarily competing with basketball, but you're going to have to compete with one of those major sports any way you look at it. So as far as I'm concerned, there's always going to be, we're either going to be competing with football or we're going to compete with basketball. And those right now in the NCAA, those are probably the biggest revenue sports that are causing a lot of concern with regard to television contracts and just, what people actually want to watch.
Yeah, I just think they need to cough up the NCAA needs to support the wrestling and even some of the other programs more to help build it, because football and basketball are going to be predominantly in most colleges the two big revenue sports for the college and for the tournament. However, wrestling does deserve and need to have some more love from that, and if they're going to move it, they should probably do the media push first to see if it would even be valid. I don't know how many times we've seen this at the pro level. The NFL bought out the arena football, which was being very successful. When they moved it, it killed it. It's gone. The arena football is dead, and it's because the NFL decided to move the seasons.
Right, that's always going to be a concern. You always have to, from my perspective, you always have to take a look at what the majority of the, if you want to call them revenue sports and or professional sports, are doing. Because if you butt heads with those guys that are bringing in lucrative contracts from your major networks, now you're looking at, okay, where are we going to fit our programming in? So that's what the colleges have to actually take a look at. It's not so much, it's always about the student athlete, but in the larger term, in the larger scheme of things, revenue is what really kind of dictates what happens. And I hate to say that, but I mean, if a football team or a basketball team is having a tournament at the same time as the NCAA, it's going to be really a challenge just to get sponsors to buy into that, because a lot of sponsors want to sponsor, you know, the Final Four or the regionals or a bowl game or something like that. So if you're going to compete with those type of programs, you need to understand that going in. And I agree with what you're saying. Of course, we need more support by everybody, but I think if you can align the season so we're not challenging the stalwarts or the sports that are creating a lot of buzz, now you have a better sponsorship chances, opportunities that you may not have gotten if you're going head-to-head with the big revenue sports.
Right, correct. Coach, thank you so much for showing up. I'm going to get you Alf line and get a hold of the phone number for the new Graco. That was Shannyn Gillespie from the U.S. Olympic Training Facility and coach up at Northern Michigan. Take care, Coach. One moment.
All right, thanks a lot, Bo.
You're welcome. Wow.